£42. Oh my god. Right, I'm excited to tell you that I'm back down at Combley Lakes again. If you saw my recent video on my channel, I had a really good result here back in February where I caught a 40 pounder, 36 and a 35, all in a short session. And I'm back down for another go. I've got 3 nights this time. I've got my mate Jamie with me for a bit of a social, and it's slightly warming up with the second week of March now, and we've had 13 degrees for at least 3 or 4 days before the session, so I'm really hoping that that water's warming up, the fish are moving around and they're going to be hungry and looking for a bit of food. So what I did was I got here, had a walk around, I've been over and put a little bit of bait on 3 spots. I'm just going to let the fish come in and get confident on that, and then just before dark I'm going to get the rods out and hopefully we can have a fish tonight to show you, or tomorrow morning maybe. Throughout the course of this video I'm going to talk you through spring tactics. So the last video was more just a session vlog, but this one is going to be a bit more tips orientated, a bit more kind of tactics for spring fishing really, and hopefully that can help you get a few more fish on the bank this spring. And in the process we might be able to show you one of these amazing fish that live in this lake. There's a 50 pound coming in here, there's at least 5 40s as well, and an absolute ton of backup 30s. So stay tuned, it's going to be a good weekend, and hopefully some of the tips that I'm going to give you will help you put more fish on the bank as well. Right, it's a stunning morning this morning, but unfortunately it went really cold in the night last night and really calm as well. Where we had a nice kind of westerly, southwesterly when we got here, it sort of died off in the afternoon, went completely flat and clear overnight, lots of stars. And for me, that's the worst conditions, especially this time of year, because it means it's cold. You know, you've got that sort of almost foggy morning conditions, which never seems that good for a bite. The bivvy's kind of almost gone a bit white. It's not quite frosty, but it's on the verge. It's probably, you know, 1 or 2 degrees this morning. So yeah, nothing's happened, unsurprisingly. Although I did have a bit of an occurrence on the right-hand rod this morning where I had a couple of bleeps, the bobbin went up about halfway and then it dropped right down. And I figured maybe a fish had kind of picked it up and swam back towards me. So I picked that rod up, but there was nothing there. So I don't know whether that was a liner or possibly a bird had picked me up and I couldn't see it because it was quite dark still. But yeah, at least something's happened, but you know, no fish to show at this point. So yeah, a little bit frustrating, but just having a coffee and enjoying the beautiful morning that we've got. You know, it is lovely to be out on the bank now. We're kind of in spring. And as I said before, this video is going to be about spring tactics, so stay tuned today. We're going to talk you through a few of my kind of spring little things that I do to hopefully get a few more fish. And I'm going to persevere, try and get a bite today. Quite often I would sort of rest the swim on here a little bit in the day, but I think possibly with the sun getting on the water it might warm it up and get the fish on those far margin reeds a little bit later, and we might get a daytime bite, so that'd be nice. It'd be nice to show you a fish in the daylight as well. So can have a little bit of breakfast and then yeah, we'll see what happens for the rest of the day. My first spring tip that I'm going to give you on this session is to use bright pop-ups. There's something about the spring where the carp are just coming out of winter and their eyesight isn't quite at its best because of the cold water, and they get quite inquisitive, and also they're sort of on the hunt for food, and a bright pop-up just standing up off the bottom can really catch their eye. And because of their lack of kind of pressure at this time of year, they're not sort of wary of things, and they're more inquisitive, and they're more likely to pick up something bright. So try a bright pop-up in the spring, and it can really help catch you extra fish when the fish are kind of not really in a feeding mood, but they just want to sample it and see what it is. Really, it's more like a lure than actually a food item to them. And the reason I'm showing this is because this is what's going out on one of my rods tonight. So it's a withy pool rig, little sort of 6-inch boom there, just sits about 2 inches off the bottom, nothing crazy, but I just like a pop-up in the spring because it really catches their eye. So I'm going to get this rod out now. We're sort of getting ready for the second night. We've not had any fish yet, unfortunately, but I am hoping that tonight's the night. It's a bit more overcast tonight, and that breeze has come back again, so I'm hoping that it's going to stay like this. The conditions will be a lot better, hopefully, to get a couple of fish tonight. So I'm going to get this rod out, and then I'll show you the other 2 rods before they go out, and then we'll talk a little bit more about spring tips. Right, now the other rig that I'm putting out it's a rig that I believe I did a video about that was better than a Ronnie, that sort of thing. It's basically like a tied like a D rig, but then you're using coated braid, so you strip a bit back near the hook and you use a bit of shrink tube to give you a bit of a kicker. It's a wafter rig really, so it fishes close to the bottom, kind of like that, and when the fish picks up the bait, the hook drops down, and so it's in that prone position ready to hook them. It's a really good rig, I've done really well on it, caught fish up to £50 in France, and it's been good for me. Last time I was here I was using the Amnesia D rig because the water was quite clear, and I feel like Amnesia was a bit more subtle, a bit more hidden away from the fish's sight, but if I can get away with it I like using this rig. The water's a bit more coloured now, and this rig's just slightly better turning, slightly better hooking potential. So if I can get away with it, I'll use this rig. So this is going out on my other 2 rods. I'm just mixing it up, seeing what works, seeing if I can get one on a pop-up, and I've done really well on pop-ups on here before in the spring, so trying that, but also trying the bottom baits, because back in February I had all my fish on bottom baits, so trying a bit of both, seeing what works. Now another tip for spring that I can give you while I remember is to follow the wind, especially if you've had a couple of days of warm weather, because that will warm up the surface layers of the water across the lake, and then the wind will be blowing that down, especially if it's a southerly or a westerly wind. You want to get on that northern bank of the lake where that's going to blow into the northern or the northeastern sort of bank. The sun's often on that bank as well, and the wind blowing down there with that warmer surface water should really make the carp follow it, and any natural food that's sort of emerging at that time of year as well will be coming out there, so the carp will know that, and they'll follow it. So I thought I'd just let you know that one while I remember before I get this rod out. So I'm gonna put this rod out now, and then before it gets dark I'm going to tell you a couple more spring tips. Hopefully we can get off the mark, because neither of us has caught anything yet, and for this lake, it's fishing a bit slow, I think, because of that cold weather we had last night and the completely flat, calm conditions. But now the wind's picked up, it's gone a bit more overcast. Tonight should be the night, so keep watching and keep your fingers crossed for me, guys. Right, another good thing to remember in the spring is that the water is still going to be cold. Unless you've had a couple of weeks of really hot, kind of upper teen, low 20 sort of temperatures, the water is still going to be fairly cold. I think at the moment it's about 11 degrees here, and that isn't really enough to spur the fish on to feed heavily. So if you use too much bait in the spring, you can really cut down your chances of a take. The fish will feed, but in shorter sort of windows throughout the day, maybe for only like half an hour or an hour each day. And if you've got a lot of bait out there, you're kind of cutting down your chances of them finding your hook bait because of the sheer number of food items that are out there. I tend to fish 5 or 6 baits, a little bit of crumb, little patches of kind of dust really, but just attraction, enough to get the fish in and feeding, but then looking for something to actually pick up, and hopefully a hook bait is one of those things. So yeah, big tip for spring is don't use too much bait, because you'll either overfeed the fish or they won't be able to find your hook bait in amongst all the other bait, and then they'll get full before they even pick it up. So as you can see, I've now got my 3 rods out, ready for the night. Second night, it's looking a bit bleak at the moment, nothing's happened yet, and we've not really seen an awful lot. There's been a couple of shows, but it's not exactly like the fish are crawling up the lines. We have got a nice wind blowing sort of this way down, which is it's kind of a southeasterly, I think, that one. So it's a little bit cold, but at least it's not, you know, a northerly, which would make it absolutely freezing. But you know, I'd rather it was a westerly, you know, southwesterly, a little bit of a warmer wind, which would hopefully kind of get the fish going a bit. But I think last night, you know, being so cold, it just switched the fish off completely. There was no wind at all, stars were out. Lovely night for sitting, but not the best night for a catching. But I think if this wind carries on tonight, we're even due a little bit of rain, it might just switch them on, because in the spring really you want that sort of more windy, kind of milder temperatures to get the fish kind of moving around, rather than going dormant and back into their winter mode. They can kind of switch between winter mode and spring mode quite quickly at this time of year, depending on the conditions. So try and look for those weather windows this time of year when it's been a bit warmer. You've got decent winds, air pressure is quite low, you know, all these things can go in your favour to catching more fish in the spring. So yeah, I'm going to stop rambling now and going to have a little drink this evening, a little bit of a barbecue, and just chill out, and hopefully we'll have some fish to show you through the night or tomorrow morning.
So I've woken up to pretty torrential, horrible rain at about 3 in the morning, and it hasn't stopped since then. It's about 7 now, and I didn't manage to get back to sleep, so I am absolutely shattered, and I'm just surviving on coffee at the moment. Hopefully you can hear the rain in the background. It's yeah, it's been pretty rough night really, but I always like to look on the positive side, and I think, you know, this time of year, if you can get conditions like this, it is kind of ideal. You know, yesterday morning we had clear sky, kind of cold, almost frosty conditions with a bit of an easterly wind, or a bit of a northeasterly wind, and it just didn't feel right for a bite. But at the moment, you know, it's quite a strong kind of southwesterly wind and rain, and you know, it's sort of stirring the lake up and getting the fish moving. So yeah, nothing's actually happened yet, which I'm quite surprised about. It's been warmer, you know, we've got a bit of wind and rain, but I am hopeful that this is going to get them moving, and hopefully this morning we might have a chance. But I'm going to stay, you know, positive, be persistent, and hopefully make something happen. But at the moment, I am just bivvy bound. I'm really glad that I brought this social shelter with me. I don't know if you can really see that, but I'll show you some shots of the outside. But yeah, it's the new Prologic Element Camo social wrap, which kind of goes with the SLR bivvies and allows you to sort of extend the front out, so you've got a bit of a social area, but also gives you more space if you bring a lot of gear like I do. And also it's a real nice shelter from the rain, because sometimes, you know, if you've got wind blowing rain into the bivvy, it can get quite wet in there, but this kind of gives you a massive front porch. So yeah, it's kind of luxury carping, even though the weather's bad. At least I'm nice and sheltered and dry in here. So yeah, I'm probably going to redo the rods at some point, because I feel like I'm always more confident when I've got fresh rigs out there, and there may be a chance of a daytime bite today, so we'll see.
Well, it finally happened. We're on the second morning now, and the weather's been good. I think I was saying earlier, and it was feeling like it was going to happen, and it has happened. And what we've got there is a really nice Combley scaly one, nice linear. It looks to be kind of low 30 maybe, if I'm lucky. So I'll get it out and weigh it, and I'll have to get in the water with it, because that's the rules here. But yeah, I'll show you once I've got it all sorted. Come on, well happy.
was looking like a blank, and we've pulled it out of the bag. I said earlier on in the video about putting a bright pop-up on in the spring because it really catches the fish's eye, and you know, they're not particularly hungry, but if they see something that just, you know, gets their interest, they might just go sample it, and that's exactly what's happened. I managed to catch this stunning linear this morning after quite a hard session so far. It's come good, and we've got this 34-pound 12 mirror, absolutely beautiful. So if it doesn't decide to flap and get away, I'm going to show it to you now. We've got a few photos anyway, but yeah, I'm really happy because it's been hard going, and a little change of tactics to that bright one has really made the difference. And there you go. They're all gorgeous fish in this lake, and this one particularly with those big linear plated scales has just blown me away really. Really nice battle as well. Shame I couldn't really get it on camera for you, but caught me by surprise. I was just sitting in a bivvy feeling sorry for myself when off it went. Tried to get down to Jamie's swim. I had to kind of go to my next swim down and sort of pull it back towards me, and after a little tussle under the rod tip, trying to get in the reeds, finally got it in. So yeah, I'm buzzing with that. So that's a new spot that's produced. Not actually fished that spot before, so I'll talk you through the spots a bit later on. I've got the rod back out now, so I'm really hoping there's still a couple of fish feeding. We might have another one today. So yeah, let's get it back. Happy days. Which way should we go? Put it this way. That's it. Go on, fish. When you're ready. Come on, well happy. Right, so I've just got the rods back out for the final night on this session. We've still only had the one fish so far, but I'm so glad that I decided to put the pop-up on, because last time I was here I just fished all three on the deck and I did catch really well, but the bottom baits haven't produced on this session. So yeah, it was definitely worth trying to pop up. Whether or not it was the spot or the tactic, I'll never know, but it's nice to have had a fish. I think the whole complex is fishing fairly hard this week, just because we had that really cold first night. I think it was almost frosty, and at this time of year that can sort of turn the fish off completely. But now then we've had, you know, slightly warmer and a bit of wind and rain, and it switched them on and I caught one. So yeah, back to the spring tips really, and the conditions. You know, you've really got to look out for these little weather windows at this time of year. In the summer, you know, when it's more consistent, you can kind of go fishing whenever, and you might catch a fish in the daytime or the night time or whatever time. If you find them, you've got a good chance of catching them. But at this time of year, they might not feed for 2 or 3 days if it's really cold, and there's no point going fishing. But if you can find those little weather windows when you think the water's warmed up, you've got a nice warm wind, all the factors are kind of coming together. Try and find a bit of shallow water and fish a nice bright one to them with very little bait. You know, don't overbait in spring, I think I mentioned before, and you can have a really good chance. Another good idea is to follow the bird life as well, because quite often they'll be diving and giving away location of any sort of food, and obviously the carp will home in on that as well. Things like fresh weed coming up and insect life that's starting to hatch at this time of year, the birds will sort of hone in on that, and you'll see them coming up with bits of weed in their mouth, quite often feeding on the naturals in that. And if you can see the birds doing that, quite often carp will be close by as well. So yeah, well worth keeping an eye on our feathered friends. However annoying they are, sometimes they come in handy. But yeah, like I say, rods are out for tonight. I'll talk you through the spots in a minute, because I did actually change a spot, and that's what ended up catching me a fish. So I'll talk you through that next, and then let's keep everything crossed that we get another fish before we have to go tomorrow morning. Right, so this is my swim here, and as you can see we've got a nice reed line on the far margin there, and particularly in the spring I think a nice margin reed line is a really good thing. The fish can get in and out of those reeds and use it for shelter, but also rubbing off any parasites, and also, you know, kind of looking for any food that might be emerging in amongst the stems. Snails and things like that will kind of cling to the stems of the reeds, and the carp know that. And if you see the reeds knocking, it's well worth investigating that area and trying your luck there. So yeah, we've got the reed line on the far side, and I've basically just picked 3 spots along it. So I think I've got one on the end here, one here somewhere, and one here somewhere, and just really just peppered bait all the way along there so that the fish can move up and down and pick up bait and sort of feel safe, and then hopefully they come across the hook bait. And I haven't used a lot of bait, you know, probably only maybe 10 or 15 or so per rod, and I've put out a little mix of pellets and sweet corn as well, just in with that. It's quite subtle, not too heavy, and just enough to sort of stir their interest. I have had a few cutes and stuff diving on the spot, so there's definitely a little bit of bait still out there. So instead of going crazy when I've sent the rods out with the boat, I've just put the smallest amount in, you know, 5 baits and a little sort of palm full of the pellet mix, and that's it, you know, the equivalent of maybe a solid bag's worth, but just enough for a bite, because if there's bait still down there, especially at this time of year, I don't want to be adding to it. So this was where I started, where I said, you know, there, and there. And then this one over here, hadn't seen any fish near it, so I thought I'd move it, and I went around and sort of more over this side of the reeds. I'm just going to level that for you. Yeah, so I moved my right hand rod, which was over here, over this way to about there on the reeds, and actually that was the rod that did me a fish. What I did was I was sat with Jamie in the evening, and we saw a fish show there a couple of times, a little bit off the reeds, to be fair. It wasn't right in tight to the margin, but I thought I'd give it a go, and that was the rod that went. So observation at this time of year is also really important, and it's paid off. You know, I sort of acted on what I've seen, and I've caught a fish, and if I hadn't moved that rod, I could still be sat here blanking. So yeah, nice to get another one from Combley Lakes. And yeah, hopefully we've got time for a couple more tonight or tomorrow morning. Well, this is a good way to start the day. The last morning of the session, and it's absolutely glorious out here. Kind of misty, still morning, wasn't really expecting much. And then 6:15, my middle rod is gone. And wait till you see this. This is an absolute peach of a fish. Look at that. So I'm just going to get everything sorted and get out to show you, but that's absolutely made the session for me. So happy. It's been hard work and it's all come good. Guys, I just wanted to show you before I unhook the fish. Look at that hook hold. That's the Withy Pool rig, which I always bang on about, Steve Renyard's invention. But look at that, it's more or less in the centre and a good sort of couple of inches back, right in the soft bit before you get to the lips there. And yeah, he was never coming off in a million years. What a fish, look at it. Oh my God. Can't believe it. It's 42 pounds. Oh my God. Right, I'm pretty sure, guys, this is the same fish that I caught last session down here, which is absolutely crazy. A bit bigger than last time. I think it was 41.6 last time. Oh shit, I'm away again. It might be a duck. Right guys, Jamie's gonna grab my rod for me. I'll just show you this one and then I'll get it back. I think I'm away on one of my other rods, so. Right guys, here we go. Look at that stunning fish, 42 pounds from Combley Lakes. And I'm just blown away. Same fish I caught last time I was here, a little bit bigger. But last time I didn't manage to get any decent photos. And I think this time we've nailed some, so super happy with that. On the bright pop-up again, so those spring tactics are working. Let's get this fish back and go see what's going on with my other rod. Away we go. Come on. Well, a little update for you. So that's my rig. That was attached to a fish and is no longer attached to a fish. So what happened, the fish was on my left-hand rod over to the reeds there, and obviously we were doing pictures of that one in the water, and Jamie came and ran to the rod, but by the time he got here it was locked up and it got in the reeds. So I went round. There's no sort of trees on the bank here, so you can walk all the way around with your rod held high, keep the line up, and with waders on, you know, you can get into the reeds and get above the fish, and sort of, rather than trying to pull for, you know, trying to drag them out and hurt their mouths and that, I think it's much better to go around, try and get above them, and hopefully they'll come out, and then you can kind of play them from the bank and land them that way. But unfortunately, when I got round there, the fish had already shed the hook in the reeds. They're very good at doing that. I don't know how they do it, but as soon as they get into any sort of structure, they can shed the hook in a heartbeat. And yeah, got my rig back, so at least I'm not leaving the fish tethered up, and you know, not leaving any line and tackle in the water as well. You can see there that bright pop up, the orange one this time has got me another bite, but unfortunately we lost it. And yeah, I mean, it's been a great session, but it's a shame to end it on a loss. But then, you know, I did have that 40, so what can I say? It's mixed emotions at the moment. So I hope you've enjoyed the video. I've got a dedicated tips video coming for spring tips that you've never heard before, so make sure you check that one out on my channel, and also another one all about hook pulls and how to avoid hook pulls. So there's lots coming on the channel. Make sure you subscribe, leave us a comment with any of your spring tips, and make sure you share the video. It really helps me get it out. You know, don't charge anything for these videos, but if you could do me a favour and share it around, that'd be really appreciated. All right, thanks for watching, guys.